Episode 1, The Night the Chalice Wept. The night it began, the monastery was silent. Even the candles refused to burn. I was sweeping the altar steps when I heard it. A sound too soft to name, too tender to fear. Drip. Then again. Drip. At first, I thought it was rain. But there were no windows open, and the air was dry as ash. When I turned, I saw it hidden beneath a torn cloth, half buried in dust and centuries of obedience. A chalice. Silver, carved with angels who looked as though they were suffering. And it was bleeding. Not pouring. Not gushing. It wept. A single drop of red slid down its rim and landed on my hand. It was warm, alive. And it pulsed once like a heartbeat. I should have screamed. I should have run to the abyss. But something in that warmth called me. It whispered to the hollow places I'd hidden behind my vows. When I looked into the chalice, I saw my reflection. But the woman staring back wasn't me. Her lips moved. Mine did not. "Drink," she said, "and remember what heaven forgot." The words curled inside my head like smoke, filling the empty chambers of my faith. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. I could only feel the hunger. A sound rose from behind me, the creak of a pew, the shuffle of bare feet. But when I turned, no one was there. Only the faint scent of incense and blood. That night, I hid the chalice in my cell, wrapped in my robe. I told myself I would pray for guidance at dawn. But I never prayed. I watched the darkness instead, waiting for the next drop to fall. And when it did, I caught it on my tongue. Episode 2, A Kiss in the Confessional. I went to confession at dusk. The bells had just finished tolling, and the shadows of the cloister stretched long enough to touch my feet. I remember thinking if I spoke the truth, perhaps the chalice would stop calling my name. The priest's voice was steady when he greeted me. "Speak, child," he said. But as I began to confess, his tone changed, slower, deeper, almost tender. And when he whispered my name, it wasn't Father Matteo anymore. It was something else. I told him everything, the blood, the whisper, the reflection that wasn't mine. There was silence. Then I heard him breathe in, sharp and hungry. "Do you crave it still?" he asked. The question struck through the lattice like lightning. I wanted to say no. But my lips parted, and a tremor escaped. "Yes," I whispered. A drop of something warm, metallic, landed on my wrist. I wiped it, thinking it was candle wax. It wasn't. It was blood. From the small grill between us, a red stain spread, as if someone's mouth had pressed against it from the other side. And then, a voice. "Open your heart. Let him taste your soul." The air grew thick with incense. And I swear, in the shadows, I saw hands pale, trembling reach through the lattice. They didn't touch my skin. But I felt them all the same. My breath caught. My knees weakened. And in that moment between fear and surrender, something impossible happened. I tasted him. His lips never met mine. Yet the warmth of his breath filled me. I tasted blood and devotion. When I opened my eyes, the confessional was empty. Only the scent of roses and iron remained. But on the other side of the lattice, a shape lingered, the faint outline of a man, fading into smoke. And where his mouth had been, the wood still dripped red. Episode 3, The Sermon of Desire. That morning, the church was overflowing. The abbess had fallen ill, and I was told to read her sermon in her place. A humble duty, they said. A small act of faith. But when I stepped onto the pulpit, the air changed, heavy, sweet, trembling like something alive. The chalice was there on the altar, hidden beneath white linen. I could feel it watching me. Its heartbeat echoed in my chest. When I opened my mouth to speak, the words were not mine. They came from somewhere deep, a rhythm too ancient to belong to a mortal tongue. "The flesh is not the enemy of God," I said. "It is his favorite disguise." Gasps rippled through the pews. Some crossed themselves. Others leaned forward, hungry, as if their souls had waited lifetimes to hear it. I spoke of holiness that burned, of salvation through surrender, of a love that pierced the body like a thorn and bled it clean. And the more I spoke, the warmer the church became. Candles dripped wax like tears. Icons shimmered with sweat. A scent rose, not of incense, but of skin and longing. A woman in the front row began to weep. A man beside her clutched his rosary until it broke, beads scattering like seeds across the stone floor. And through it all, I felt something rise behind me, a presence vast and radiant, wings brushing the ceiling in silence. I didn't dare turn around. But I knew it was smiling. When the last word left my lips, no one moved. Some knelt, trembling. Others reached toward me, as if I held the power to absolve and destroy. Then came the sound, slow, deliberate, drip, drip, drip. The linen on the altar darkened. The chalice bled openly now, staining the cloth in crimson veins. And as I looked down, I realized my hands were shaking. Not from fear. From hunger. For the first time, I understood. Faith was never about obedience. It was about surrender. And I had already begun to fall. Episode 4, The Saint with Open Eyes. For 3 nights after the sermon, I could not sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw them faces from the congregation, pale and trembling, lips parted in prayer or pleasure. Their eyes followed me into my dreams, whispering words I could no longer tell from my own thoughts. So I went to the chapel. Alone. At midnight. The moonlight bled through the stained glass in fractured colors, painting the Virgin's statue in shards of blue and gold. She stood above the altar, marble perfection, eyes closed, hands open as if to receive a confession no one dared to speak. I knelt before her. I begged for forgiveness. For silence. For peace. But when I bowed my head, I heard a sound faint, wet, unmistakable. Drip. The same rhythm that haunted my every prayer. I looked up. Blood. A single thread of red rolled down the Virgin's cheek, catching on her lips before falling onto her pale stone hand. Another followed. And another. Then her eyelids fluttered. Just once. But I saw it. I know I saw it. Her gaze met mine, not blank, not divine, but aware. There was no wrath in it. Only sorrow. And something deeper, desire. I stepped back, trembling, clutching my rosary until it snapped. Beads scattered across the marble, echoing like bones. The statue's lips parted barely. And from that crack in the stone came a whisper, soft as breath. He loves you more when you bleed. My knees gave out. I crawled backward, unable to look away. The Virgin's tears kept falling red, endless, alive. And on the altar, the chalice trembled, as if answering her. When I fled the chapel, the doors slammed behind me. The sound chased me down the corridor, like a heartbeat carved in stone. That night, I lay awake until dawn. And when I finally rose to wash my face, the water turned pink. Episode 5, The Scarlet Dream. I hadn't slept in days. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt him watching, the one from the chalice, the one whose voice dripped through my prayers like honey and ash. That night, I finally surrendered. Exhaustion pressed me into my bed like a hand. The candle burned low, then died. And in the dark, I heard it wings. Not the flutter of birds, but something heavier, ancient. The air moved, and the scent of myrrh and blood filled the room. When I opened my eyes, he was there. He stood at the foot of my bed, naked beneath the crucifix. His skin glowed faintly pale, luminous, and his wings were the color of dusk after rain. Feathers streaked with red, as though he had flown through a battlefield and never cleaned the wounds. I couldn't breathe. He wasn't beautiful like the saints carved in marble. He was alive, terrible, perfect in his ruin. "Do you know me?" he asked. His voice was a chord, half thunder, half sigh. I tried to speak, but no sound came. Only the pounding of my heart, louder than the bells at Lauds. He smiled, faintly. "You once prayed to be touched by heaven. And heaven has answered." He reached toward me, not with hands, but with the shadow of them. And when his fingers brushed the air above my skin, I felt warmth, pulse, surrender. I should have turned away. I should have crossed myself. But I didn't. I wanted him. When his lips met my throat, there was no pain. Only the taste of iron, the whisper of wings, the feeling of falling upward. I saw flashes, stars, altars, blood swirling like wine. And through it all, his voice. "You were born to drink from me. To carry what heaven has spilled." I woke before dawn, gasping, trembling. The bed was soaked in red. But there were no wounds on my body. Only a single white feather resting on my chest. It pulsed once. Like a living heart. And I knew the chalice was no longer outside of me. It was within. Episode 6, Flesh and Faith. It began during prayer. The chapel was empty, yet I felt surrounded by wings, by whispers, by something vast and unseen pressing against my skin. I knelt before the crucifix, clutching the rosary tighter than ever before. Each bead cut into my palms like tiny teeth, drawing small points of blood. And for every drop that fell, I felt closer to him. The angel. The one who came to me in dreams, whose touch burned like forgiveness. When I whispered Ave Maria, the words faltered, dissolving into breath. My lips trembled, my body swayed. Prayer became rhythm. Rhythm became need. I wasn't speaking to God anymore. I was calling for him, the one with the scarlet wings. The air grew thick, heavy with the scent of myrrh and something sweetly rotten. My robe clung to my body, the candlelight flickered like it was watching. And then I heard it. Faith is not in words, my child. It is in surrender. His voice came from everywhere, the rafters, the stones, the beating of my heart. My knees gave out. My breath turned into a gasp that echoed off the altar. In that moment, I understood. Every prayer I'd ever whispered was a reaching. A plea not for salvation, but for touch. My hands, once folded in devotion, betrayed me. They trembled against my skin, following the pulse he had awakened. And when I finally opened my eyes, the chalice was there on the altar, full to the brim. It pulsed. It breathed. It wanted. I crawled toward it, trembling. And when my lips met its rim, I tasted both sin and sanctity. The blood slid down my throat like liquid fire. It didn't burn, it blessed. Light filled the chapel, red, radiant, alive. And in that holy glow, I saw him once more. Kneeling behind me. Smiling. Now, he whispered. "You pray with the body God gave you." And when he touched my cheek, I realized the truth. Faith had never been about purity. It was about devotion strong enough to bleed. Episode 7, The Blood of Saints. It was raining that morning, the kind of rain that falls without sound, sliding down the monastery's windows like liquid glass. The world outside was gray, silent. Inside, I searched for answers. The library had always frightened me. Not because of its darkness, but because it listened. Every book there seemed to breathe. Every scroll whispered prayers in languages I'd never heard. I went there to find solace. Instead, I found him. Hidden behind the hymnal shelves was a locked chest, its iron clasp etched with symbols that burned faintly when I touched them. The lock broke with a sound like bone cracking. Inside, wrapped in cloth older than sin itself, were scrolls written in crimson ink, not ink, I realized, but blood. The words pulsed faintly under candlelight, alive. They told of a sect the church erased, followers of an angel who bled for love. They called him Seraphina, the bearer of the cup. He had descended not to destroy, but to feel. To love God as a man. To know him through the body. The scrolls said the church tried to kill him, but his blood was too divine to vanish. They sealed it in a chalice, mine. His. I traced the words with trembling fingers, each one throbbing like a heartbeat. And in the silence between breaths, I heard him again. Now you know why you crave me. You are the vessel. The wound. The memory. The candle flickered violently. I dropped the scroll, and the flame caught the edge. It burned too quickly, as if eager to be erased again. Ash rose like incense, swirling into the shape of wings. When I stepped back, I saw them faint marks of red forming on my palms, identical to those drawn in the scripture. Stigmata. But not of Christ. That night, I couldn't bring myself to pray. Every word from my lips felt like blasphemy or devotion. Perhaps they had always been the same. And as I fell asleep, the chalice whispered from beneath my bed. The blood of saints runs in you now. And saints were never innocent. Episode 8, The Forbidden Mass. No bells called us that night. No prayers were spoken aloud. Yet every nun in the convent rose from her bed at the same hour, as if the same heartbeat pulsed through us all. The corridors were lit only by candle flame. We moved in silence, bare feet brushing the cold stone, our robes whispering against our skin. At the chapel doors, I hesitated. I should have turned away. But the chalice was already awake. Its pulse echoed inside me like a second soul. Inside, the altar was stripped bare. No cross. No Bible. Only the chalice, overflowing, its blood glimmering dark as garnet. And around it, the sisters stood in a circle, eyes glazed with devotion and fear. No one spoke. But we all knew the words. This is my body. This is my hunger. The voice came from everywhere, not human, not angelic, but both. I recognized it instantly. Seraphina. The candles flared, stretching our shadows into something monstrous and divine. The scent of roses, sweat, and iron filled the air. One by one, the sisters began to sway, their hands raised, their mouths whispering his name through trembling breath. When the chalice passed to me, it was warm. I drank. The taste was no longer blood, but light, sweet and searing, flooding every vein with music. The others watched, lips parted, pupils wide. Their tears shone like beads of glass. And then it happened. The walls shimmered. The crucifix above the altar bent forward, its head bowing as if in surrender. Wings vast, crimson, radiant unfolded from the darkness, brushing against our faces. Tonight, he said, we serve the body, and the craving within it. Some fell to their knees, others reached for each other, their prayers dissolving into gasps. The line between devotion and desire vanished completely. We became one voice, one pulse, one sin. When dawn came, the candles had melted to pools of wax and blood. The chalice stood empty, yet still dripping. And every sister's mouth was stained red, not from wine, but from worship. I wanted to weep. Instead, I smiled. Because for the first time, I understood. We hadn't broken our vows. We had fulfilled them. Episode 9, The Hands Beneath the Habit. After the forbidden mass, the air in the convent changed. It no longer smelled of incense and candle wax, but of something raw, something that clung to skin. Even silence seemed alive, thick enough to touch. At first, I thought it was exhaustion. The sisters walked with glassy eyes, smiling without reason. Their lips were still red. Their prayers, when whispered, sounded like sighs. But what haunted me most came at night. I would lie in my cell, eyes open, staring into the dark. The candle would flicker once, twice, and the shadows would shift along the walls. At first, they looked harmless. A robe. A cross. A trick of light. Until one night, I felt them move. Something brushed the edge of my blanket, soft as a kiss. Then again, firmer, deliberate. A hand. Another followed, tracing the line of my thigh through the fabric of my robe. My breath caught in my throat. I froze. And then I realized. I knew that touch. You called me, a voice murmured, low as thunder beneath water. Did you think faith could silence the flesh you awakened? I wanted to scream, but my mouth refused to open. The room was thick with warmth, my pulse matching the rhythm of unseen fingers. They slid over my ribs, my neck, my lips reverent, desperate, jealous. For a heartbeat, I saw him again, the angel, the one from my dreams. But this time his wings were torn, dripping crimson. He knelt beside me, his face pale, his eyes dark with hunger and sorrow. They envy you, he whispered. Even heaven remembers the taste of sin. The hands tightened. The candle went out. I was no longer certain how many touched me, one, or many, or whether they came from the shadows, or from within me. When dawn came, I awoke on the chapel floor. My habit was torn, my skin marked by faint red fingerprints. The chalice sat before me, trembling, overflowing once more. I should have felt shame. But all I felt was longing. Because now, the hands never left me. Even when I prayed. Especially when I prayed. Episode 10, The Voice from the Chalice. I had stopped counting the nights. Sleep no longer came, only whispers did. They followed me through prayer, through silence, through the ache that now lived beneath my ribs. The chalice never left my side. I hid it beneath my bed, yet every morning I woke to find it on my pillow, as if it had crept there to watch me dream. The blood inside it no longer stilled. It shimmered, restless, alive, breathing with every beat of my heart. That night, I heard it speak. At first, it was only sound, a faint vibration, like a sigh trapped in metal. Then words began to form, soft and slow, shaped from the pulse of my own veins. Drink, my vessel, it murmured. And remember what heaven forgot. I froze. My throat went dry. Its voice was both male and female, old and young, like a choir of souls whispering in unison. I whispered back, "Who are you?" The surface of the blood rippled, forming the faint outline of a face, not human, not divine, but both. Eyes like molten gold. Lips red as the wound of birth. I am the first hunger, it said. The taste that made angels fall. My breath trembled. I wanted to run, but my knees bent instead. The chalice hummed against the floor, rising, as though the air itself lifted it toward me. It hovered inches from my lips. Drink, it commanded again. Let me speak through you. I obeyed. The moment the blood touched my tongue, the world dissolved. I saw cities of light burning, wings torn from the sky, lovers crucified for touching what was sacred. And through it all, his face. Seraphina. He was crying. Not from pain, but from desire too pure for heaven to forgive. When the vision faded, I was kneeling in my cell, the chalice empty in my hands. My habit clung to me, soaked in crimson. My heart felt heavy, full, holy, aching. Then came his voice again, from inside my chest this time. You are not my servant, Seraphina. You are my echo. And for the first time, I realized the truth. I had never found the chalice. It had found me. Episode 11, The Lovers of Golgotha. He came to me on a night without stars. The air hung heavy, thick with incense and storm. For a heartbeat, I thought he was an illusion, another dream sent by the chalice to torment me. But when Father Matteo stepped into the candlelight, I saw the truth in his trembling hands. They were stained red. His eyes, once kind, once devout, burned now with the same fever that lived inside me. He had seen the visions too. He had heard the chalice speak. Seraphina, he said, voice breaking like glass, I tried to destroy it. I threw it into the river. But it came back. Always back. He reached for me. The instant our fingers touched, I felt the blood inside me stir, pulsing, calling, recognizing him. Two halves of the same wound. We fell to our knees before the altar. The chalice waited there, gleaming, alive. Its surface shimmered with something more than reflection, it showed us. Entwined. Bleeding. Praying. This is not love, he whispered. Then what is it? I breathed. Resurrection. The words cracked open the air. Lightning flared through the stained glass, painting the church in red and gold. The crucifix above us tilted, groaning, as if the weight of our sin had shifted heaven itself. He kissed me, not with lust, but with agony, as if trying to taste salvation through pain. And when our blood mixed on our tongues, the chalice overflowed. It spilled across the floor, thick and warm, forming a perfect circle around us. The air throbbed with wings, with voices, with memories of a paradise that had once loved too deeply to survive. Two hearts, the voice of Seraphina whispered, one crucifix. One bleeding for the other. Matteo trembled. We're not meant to live through this. Then let us die, I said, together. We drank from the chalice, both of us. The blood burned, seared, sanctified. And in that instant, I saw everything, heaven's gates shattering, angels screaming, the sky folding inward like a wound closing. When it ended, we were lying in silence. No thunder. No breath. Only peace. And then I heard it faint, distant, eternal. Rise, my lovers of Golgotha. The world remembers you now. Episode 12, The Day the Sky Turned Red. When I awoke, the world was no longer the same. The air outside the monastery shimmered as if it were alive, trembling, weeping light. The sky was not blue, not gray, but red. A deep, endless crimson, as though the heavens themselves were bleeding. The bells had fallen silent. The birds were gone. And every candle in the chapel burned without flame, casting light that pulsed like breath. Father Matteo lay beside me on the altar, pale and still. Yet his chest rose and fell barely, but enough to tell me he lived. I touched his face, and his eyes opened. But they were no longer his. They glowed faintly, gold beneath the red. And when he spoke, it wasn't his voice that came forth. You opened the wound, Seraphina said through him. And now heaven bleeds. Outside, the earth groaned. I could hear the stones shift beneath the convent, as though the mountain itself was trying to breathe again. The sisters knelt in the courtyard, their faces lifted to the red sky, tears streaking their cheeks, not of sorrow, but of rapture. The chalice floated above the altar, full once more. Blood spilled over its rim, dripping in slow, rhythmic pulses that matched the beating of my heart. Each drop hit the marble and bloomed into light, veins of crimson threading across the floor like roots seeking life. "Is this damnation?" I whispered. Serial's borrowed lips curved into a smile, tender, mournful. "No, Seraphina. This is remembrance. Heaven remembers what it lost when it forgot desire." The walls began to breathe. The statues opened their eyes. And from every painting, every relic, every forgotten prayer, figures stepped forth, saints, angels, martyrs weeping blood as they reached toward the chalice. Their mouths moved in silence, but I understood them. They were not praying. They were begging. Matteo, or what was left of him, took my hand. His skin was warm, pulsing with the same crimson light that filled the air. "We can't stop it," he said. "You've joined the pulse of creation itself." The sky split open with a sound like the tearing of wings. A beam of red light descended, touching the chalice and me. I felt it enter me, not with pain, but with truth. Everything alive. Everything dying. Everything wanting. And in that flood of light, I heard Serial's voice for the last time. "You are no longer my vessel. You are my memory." When the light faded, the monastery was gone. Only the chalice remained, buried in ash, still dripping softly, each drop echoing like a heartbeat beneath the bleeding sky. Episode 13, The Bride of the Chalice. I do not remember how long I wandered through the ruin. There was no dawn, no dusk, only the endless red glow of a wounded sky. The monastery was gone, swallowed by silence. And yet, I still heard the heartbeat. It came from within me now. Slow. Steady. Eternal. When I looked down, I saw the faint shimmer beneath my skin, veins of liquid gold laced with crimson light. Each pulse sang softly, a hymn only I could hear. And somewhere beneath that music, the chalice whispered my name. Seraphina. No longer a title. No longer a vow. Just a sound, the sound of belonging. I found what was left of the altar buried in ash. The chalice stood upon it, untouched by ruin, radiant as a star fallen to earth. Its surface reflected me, but the woman I saw was not the one who once prayed for purity. Her veil was gone. Her habit, torn and translucent, clung to a body painted with light and shadow. Her eyes glowed faintly red, not from sin, but from revelation. "You have become what you worshipped," a voice said behind me. I turned. Serial stood there, no longer bleeding, no longer bound by wings. He looked almost human now, beautiful and terrible in his stillness. "You were born to drink," he said. "Now you will be the cup." He raised his hand, and the chalice floated between us. The blood within it rose, swirling upward in a slow, reverent spiral, surrounding me, entering me, becoming me. It burned, but the fire felt like love, infinite and consuming. I fell to my knees. My body arched, light spilling from my mouth, my eyes, my fingertips. I felt the weight of every prayer ever whispered, every forbidden kiss, every holy lie told in the name of obedience. They merged within me, sacred, profane, inseparable. When I rose, the chalice was empty. Its silver shell cracked and crumbled to dust. I was its vessel now. Serial knelt before me, his gaze lowered. "The heavens will never forgive you," he said. I touched his cheek, smiling through tears of blood. "Then let them remember me." And when I kissed him, the sky trembled. Red clouds swirling into the shape of wings. The first storm of a new creation had begun. Episode 14, The Last Benediction. The red sky had begun to fade. After eternity bathed in crimson, the world was finally growing pale again, a sickly, dying dawn bleeding through the ashes. The air smelled of dust and forgotten prayers. I walked barefoot through what remained of the monastery. The walls had fallen, yet the echoes remained: faint hymns, fractured laughter, the ghosts of devotion that once filled these halls. Every step I took left a trace of light on the stone, as if the ground itself remembered my name. At the altar, I found him. Father Matteo, or what the chalice had made of him, knelt among the ruins, his hands clasped around a broken rosary. The beads had turned to bone. The crucifix glowed faintly, pulsing with the last breath of heaven. He looked up when he heard me. For a moment, I saw the man he had been: gentle, afraid, faithful. Then his gaze sharpened, and the fire returned. "It isn't over," he said. "The wound still bleeds." "I know," I whispered. "That's why I came." Between us, the air shimmered, the residue of divinity, trembling like heat above the desert. The chalice was gone, but its presence still lived inside me. Every heartbeat sent a faint glow through my veins. Every breath filled the air with the scent of myrrh and blood. Matteo stood, trembling. "If you live, it continues. If you die, the world may heal." I smiled, not out of defiance, but peace. "Then give the world its mercy, Father." He hesitated. The wind howled through the broken arches, scattering ashes like falling snow. He raised the crucifix. It burned white in his hand. "Forgive me," he said. "I already have." The light pierced me, brilliant, absolute, merciful. I felt the blood within me ignite, rushing out like a tide. It spilled across the stone, glowing, spreading until it reached the shattered walls and seeped into the earth. And then, silence. When I opened my eyes, I was no longer standing. Matteo knelt beside me, his tears streaking crimson down his cheeks. The crucifix lay shattered between us. From its broken center, a single red rose bloomed. I reached out, brushing its petals with the last of my strength. "You see?" I whispered. "Even sin can flower." He bowed his head. And as the first true sunlight broke through the clouds, I felt the chalice within me dissolve. Its final drop falling into the soil. The wound had closed. But heaven would never be the same. Episode 15, The Chalice Still Drips. Centuries passed. The monastery became a ruin swallowed by moss and memory. The red sky faded to blue again, the world forgot its wound, and faith returned to marble and gold. But some wounds never truly heal. They only hide. It was a tourist who found it first, a woman with a camera and curious eyes. She came to the mountains searching for beauty, not ghosts. The guidebooks called the place Abbazia del Lacrime, the Abbey of Tears. No one remembered why. Inside, light spilled through shattered glass, painting the dust in colors long extinct. The woman's footsteps echoed softly as she wandered through the hollow nave, her breath white in the cold air. Then she heard it. Drip. Faint, deliberate, eternal. She followed the sound through the broken chapel, past fallen statues and withered pews, until she reached the altar half buried under ivy. There, among the roots and stone, something glimmered. A cup. Cracked. Tarnished. But still, whole. She bent down, brushing away the dirt, and froze. Inside the chalice was a pool of dark, viscous red. It shimmered, faintly alive, though no rain had touched it in centuries. She lifted it toward the light, smiling. "It's beautiful," she whispered. And in the reflection of the blood, a face smiled back, not hers. A woman in torn white, her eyes glowing faintly gold, lips stained the color of wine. The tourist dropped the cup. It didn't fall. It hovered in the air, trembling softly, a single drop forming at its rim. Drip. The sound echoed through the ruined halls, deep and resonant like a heartbeat waking from sleep. The vines along the walls shivered. The statues turned their faces. The crucifix above the altar cracked open, its stone heart leaking light. And somewhere within that ancient echo, a whisper stirred once more. Faith is not forgotten. It only waits to be touched. The woman's breath caught. Her pupils dilated. She reached out a trembling hand toward the chalice, toward the blood that pulsed like invitation. Outside, the wind rose suddenly, howling through the broken bell tower. The sky dimmed. And beneath the first roll of thunder, the sound came again. Drip, drip, drip. The chalice was awake. And it was thirsty.
Epilogue, the prayer beneath the blood. I am not gone. I never was. They buried the monastery in silence, sealed the walls, and built new prayers over the ashes. But silence does not erase memory. And blood, true blood, never dries. The chalice lies beneath stone and time, still trembling with the last heartbeat of creation. Every drop that falls remembers. Every whisper in the dark is my breath. Sometimes, when the wind moves through broken glass, I hear his name again. Sariel. The one who taught me that sin was only love that dared to touch God's face. I see the world now through other eyes. The pilgrim who kneels and wonders why the air feels alive. The child who dreams of wings burning red. The woman who drinks the first drop and swears she hears it whisper her name. Faith has changed its shape, but its hunger never left. There will always be another heart that listens. Another soul that aches for something holier than forgiveness. And when that soul comes, when she lifts the chalice and feels the warmth of my breath inside it, I will open my eyes again. Not to punish. Not to save. But to remind. Because holiness was never purity. It was desire strong enough to bleed. Drip. The sound you hear in the dark is not rain. It's remembrance. And it still drips. For you.